be like, you might be this close to getting in, and then a lot of people stop, when they get like doubt. Like, there's definitely been times where I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna get in because either I've had too many people pull out, or I've had losses like in the middle of my record, or like you lose this last one, and it's like, dude, I'm done. And that's why I always tell people like I think the people that make it to the UFC that are like later in their career, is they just stuck it out and they kept fighting, even though they knew like they were like this close. And a lot of times, it's like that meme you see where like, people are digging and they're digging for like gold or whatever they're looking for, and they stop and there's like a little bit left and it's right here. That's kind of what happens, and I think that's what happens in life a lot of times, to be honest.
Pouring on the pressure. Oh my goodness! Raise the knee. He's out. He's out. 24 seconds to go in the fight. My goodness.
I was a good kid, and we didn't grow up with like, we weren't rich or anything like that, but I was always, I'm an only child, so if anything, I was spoiled. My Christmas presents and whatnot were always, full of presents, obviously, because most of the presents were for me. I never really wanted for anything. So I really can't complain. I had a great childhood. Now, aside from, once I got to like middle school, and because when I was in elementary school, I was on special assignment, so we would drive from my grandma's house down in Parrish up to Tampa, and we go every day, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was. And I was also playing baseball at Bayshore Little League, so my mom wasn't rich, so like sometimes she would have to ask like other rich families, because that was like the bougie league to be with, and she would ask them for money, or not ask them for money, but ask for some help to keep me in baseball season. So she was always having me in sports, anytime. I was always in sports, maybe like 3 or 4 different sports at a time. And she'd be out there kicking the soccer ball with me, throwing the baseball, throwing the football, because I didn't grow up with a dad, so he was gone before I was born. So my mom was my mom and my dad. And it got to a point to where like we wanted to go to school in Tampa, and once I got to middle school, you couldn't be on special assignment, so you had to live in Tampa. So at that point, I remember we've lived in so many different houses that are not our own. I've lived in friends' houses in a room, sharing the same bed with my mom until I was about, I think, 13 or 14. We lived in friends' houses, my cousins' houses, always sharing a room, and that's just how it's always been. I remember like I was so happy when I got my own bedroom, when I was like 13 years old, and that was probably the biggest thing. And even today, my mom just moved into a new apartment with actual walls and actual AC. She has a living room for the first time, so it's kind of, interesting, I guess, growing up like that, and then appreciating, the little things.
Discover MMA.
Yeah, so I played baseball, like I mentioned earlier, from 6 all the way up to high school, and I actually tried out for my high school team my freshman year. But at that time, I had just gotten into skateboarding, so I was big into skateboarding, so I would blow off baseball practices to go skateboard instead. And so all my friends who were on the all-star team with me and whatnot, like in minors and whatnot, they were practicing and getting ready, and they were in shape. And I remember the first it was a conditioning tryout, and I failed horribly. We were doing pole sprints, and I remember throwing up, and then I got cut that very first practice, and I was like, I can't play baseball. Like, you didn't even get to see me throw a ball or hit the ball or anything. It was just conditioning. And my friend was like, hey man, he's like, you want to try like wrestling? Like, we can do it, and you don't have to be, there's different weight classes and everything. And I was like, you mean like gay stuff? Like where they wear like tights and they roll around and they're all sweating? He was like, no, it's not gay, dude, it's cool. So I was like, all right. So we tried out, and obviously everybody made the team. So, I fell in love with wrestling, to be honest. And I remember in between summers, we didn't have, because the wrestling team really wasn't a big thing. It was all about football and basketball and volleyball. So I wanted to stay in shape during the summer. So I joined a martial arts gym. It was actually Tiger Schulman's at the time. It was Tiger Schulman's Karate before they became an official MMA school, but they were transitioning. And I fell in love with it, even during season, and I would wrestle. And then after that, I'd go straight to Tiger Schulman's. I would do kickboxing, grappling, whatever they had going on, kickboxing conditioning. And even after high school, I actually left Tiger Schulman's and I went to another local school, Gracie Tampa. So basically right after high school, I just didn't stop training. I went to Gracie Tampa and I was like 18 years old and just, I was going to HCC, it's a community college. I was taking like a ton of credits. I ended up dropping out like after the second year, and it was funny because Arroyo kept telling me, he's like, when are you just gonna drop out of school and start fighting? And at the time, you could only go pro in Florida. There was no amateur. And I told him, I was like, I'll go pro when I get my purple belt, or I'll fight amateur as a blue belt. And he ended up fighting amateur fights in Tennessee. So it was pro rules. So we went up and fought in Tennessee for my first 3 fights, and it was ground and pound. It was basically like a pro fight. And that was kind of basically the start. Like I really wasn't even trying to fight. He just, he told me one day, one of my teammates, we were the first 2 from Gracie Tampa actually to take an amateur fight. And I was like, or he came up to me and I wasn't really training that much. And he's like, hey, I just offered, my friend Josh, he was like, I just offered him a fight up in Tennessee. It's 5.5 weeks. He said he's gonna do it. He's like, are you down to do it? And I was like, yeah, I was like, sure. And then like, I remember being in my bed that night and I was scared out of my mind. I was like, why did I just agree to fight somebody in a cage, in 5.5 weeks that I don't know? Like, I was like, this is so scary. And after I won, I was addicted. I just couldn't stop after that. Posted a video shortly after the fight of Coach and I hitting mitts in the locker room, or in the hotel room, just before the fight, just like our morning shakeout, and we're practicing the flying knee, like the exact thing I was throwing, we were practicing in there because I do it all the time. Like when I'm hitting mitts and pads, I'm always flying knees, just because like it's a good tool to have in like that type of scenario where it's like a super close fight and you might just throw it out there and you might land it. And it's funny because I landed it in the second round and it landed clean, but he didn't go out, he ate it, and then he kept fighting, and I was like, oh shit, I was like, this gets tough. So in that third round, there was like 30 seconds left and he was really putting the pressure on. Like he was really obviously the whole fight he was walking forward. Well, there was 30 seconds left and he was really getting aggressive and he was really pushing forward. And I remember just saying, like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna throw this again. I'm gonna throw as hard as I can. And if it hits him and it hurts him, great. If it doesn't, then we're just gonna keep fighting for these last 30 seconds. So it wasn't really like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna bait him, walking in. It's just he was pushing so aggressively that I just figured it might land. So I threw it, and I remember it was all in slow motion. So I remember when I landed it and it hit him, he grabbed my leg. I was like, all right, he just caught my leg. And then he started falling back, and I was like, he might be hurt. And then he actually fell down, and I was like, dang, he might be out. I was like, but let me jump on top and finish him so he doesn't get back up, because that kid was tough, and I didn't want him getting up again to have to keep fighting him for the rest of the fight. So, that's pretty much how it landed. It wasn't like, I wasn't like planning to go out there and knock him out with a flying knee. It's just something that I do and I train, and it was the right opportunity in the right moment.